Good day. Welcome to ECC's Title I workshop presented by
Myself, Tazina Zad.
and Cherie Gibson. Thank you for making time to join us. We're looking forward to presenting to you around title, giving you a foundational beginning of Title I. So let's start with who we are.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tazine Azad, she, her pronouns. I am a longtime parent advocate and leader. I am a mother of three. I am a Bangladeshi Brooklynite ever since we've come here to this country, and I'm a hyperlocal community organizer who works around language access and bringing power to the marginalized folks. Cherie, who are you?
Hi, you all. I'm Cherie Gibson. Quick facts about me on the screen. Big time, big up to the Jamaica Massive, and I'm a bunch of things. Daddy's girl, auntie, mom, all of these things. In terms of my experience, I am a citywide Title I parent leader currently. The main roles, I serve as a parent representative for DOE on the state committee of Title I Committee of Practitioners, shortened to COPS, and Title I COPS. And I'm on the steering committee for the citywide Title I Parent Advisory Council called City PAC. So that's where I come with all my Title I facts, but I've also served in many different roles for the last 10 years. Wow. From representing Queens, but overall, always looking out for New York City parents as a whole. So before we get started, as you see, we both said that we serve our boroughs, our districts, but we're also citywide. So we just want to put out the disclaimer that we are citywide parent leaders. What we share, what we talk about, if we say something about a school, a district, a borough, something, is not always specific to the schools that our kids or we are affiliated with, or our districts or our boroughs. Many people talk to us and we share information and experiences without specifically stating that. So please take the information, but leave the specifics and don't necessarily assign anything saying, oh, I know I know that's how school. No, it might not be. All right. So, believe it or not, there's like anything to add to Zeno or anything.
I mean, we're a huge, huge system. It might sound very much like yours, but we're not focusing on any school. What we're trying to do is give you a top level overview of what Title I is so that you're empowered with information and to be able to bring it to your own community when it's your turn. That's it.
All right. So let's start off. So, what do you know about Title IX? What Title One? What do you already existing know your knowledge around Title I? So we're asked. So use the Mentimeter link in the chat, as those on the QR code on the handouts to tell us what it is that you know about Title I. It could be one word, a couple words. We're going to collect it all in the Mentimeter to see who's in the room and what knowledge do we have already existing in the room. So we give it a few seconds, a few minutes or so, not a few seconds, a few minutes or so to tell us what. So Tazine, while they're putting that information in, what do you think? What do you think? We're gonna have a lot of I know a lot, or we're gonna have I don't know nothing. That's why I'm here.
Yeah, and you will know by the end of this presentations that we were going to share a lot of information with you, but that won't be all of it. There's going to be a lot more for you to learn in the future, but it's a big, big program, and it's very, very fair to some parent leaders to not know everything, and that's why we have layers of support, and thanks to ECC and the leadership and experiences through folks like Cherie, we're going to be able to support you in putting things together. So there is no wrong answer here. People, feel free to put in whatever you think is you think of first when you think about Title I.
All right, so let's see what we got. So, has Mentimeter's work, it takes the whatever that gets several responses for the largest things, right? So, looking at
Yeah.
this, we're seeing that we're excited that the largest one is parent engagements, right? So, Title One,
Woo.
is around parent engagement. So, woohoo, that's seeing said. And then I see funding is a large part there.
Uh-huh.
So that is also a big thing that we know about it. What else? Let's see. I see quite a few. I don't know. Zero, nada, zip. Okay, okay. So look, there's a 5% in there. Okay. Wonder what that floating
Yeah,
there means.
some numbers, and then we also have things like school budget because we know it's intertwined with that, and equity. It's out there. It's
Yeah, I
there.
saw that. I saw that equity. And then I saw there was one that I saw the percent was the parent voice is in there. It's all for the children. Okay. So
Yeah.
right, that is truly what Title One is about. So before we get into like, specifics and things, I am very much big about making sure that we all have good definitions and we're all on the same page about understanding what Title One is. Y'all have been in presentations with me before. I'm always about let's define it. So we're all starting from the same place of understanding. So Title One, let's start off. Title One is a federal program, meaning that the U.S. government, U.S. Education Department in this case, provides this funding for schools across the country, around the nations, and then it's given out by your state down to each local district, right? And so, what is it saying about it, right? That Title One, because there's different titles, there's Title Two, Title Three, but specifically for us, Title One, and our focus is on Part A, which is the broader one, because there's different parts for students in temporary housing, migratory children, I forget. There's one other I'm forgetting. If you remind me, but if not, I can circle back to it later. But specifically, Title One Part A comes from the Elementary Secondary Education Act (ESEA), and then which was later amended by the Every Student Succeeds Act, right? And so what it does is Title One provides supplemental financial assistance to schools to help children and to specifically help children from low income families because at its core is they believe that low income families needed additional help and support, and so let's give schools further money to help them. So its purpose, and I highlighted here some things that I want us to specifically key into in understanding and defining Title One. It is for all children, and it's an opportunity to give them a fair, equitable, and high quality education, right? That's at its core purpose, as well as to close educational achievement gaps. So this is money that the government gives you to provide programming and services to do that, right? And then it goes into further, distinctions about the districts and how it's allocated, right? And this definition comes directly from New York, U.S. U.S. Department of Education from their website. The links to it will be in the resource handout. It's also hyperlinked in the slides presentation, so you can click there. Please be aware that the US Ed is updating their website. So some pages and stuff as you go through it is up and down. If you have to, if you're a data nerd and want to know all the details, read the whole bill around Title One. If you want to really understand like what they have outlined, where it's specific, but then broad to what the states and local districts can do around Title One, right? So we have that. That's the feds. This is what the federal government says. So let's look at what New York State, the education department is, who allocates. The feds give the money to them, and they give the money to all the districts within New York State. So what is their understanding, right, around it? Same thing. They provide funds to LEAs, local educational agencies. The distinction for New York State is I give the money to public school districts, charter schools, and special act districts, which could also include private schools, for the purpose, once again, still in there, is the purpose providing all children opportunity to receive a fair, equitable, and high quality education, and to close educational achievement gaps, right? So here it is Title I, where certain things are consistent. It's for all of our children, and it's to provide fair, equitable, and high quality education. And there might be some gaps. So we use this funding to help close those achievement gaps among certain groups of students. Once again, this is from New York State Ed's website, and the links is on the slide, but also in the resource document, and you can go ahead and read further details about it. So now, how do we, the local New York City DOE, what is their understanding? How do they put Title I to us? And this is directly from their page on funding for us. And similar, they are the same way, still highlighting the things from the feds, from the state, that is for all children. It's about a fair, equitable, and high quality education and closing the education gaps, right? The only distinction I will say in theirs is that they put in their definition and overview, they make sure that you know that this is based off of funding, income from students 5 to 7, and it comes from the census data and information. So, DOE thinks you should know that, right? So why we share all that? I say, well, I want to make sure that it's important for us to understand and know that this Title I and why it's such a focus, and why the feds, the state and local have to adhere to it, because it is about providing for our children and giving them opportunities to have a high quality, fair, equitable, and high quality education, and to assisting achieving gaps and closing achievement gaps. So I want us to be cognizant of that, and making sure that we focus and understand that Title I, as much as we talk about money, it's really about providing opportunities. So services and programs, but like whatever you need is what Title I should be going at. So I want us to keep that at the forefront of our mind. So now that we have an understanding of what Title I is, briefly, right, of what Title I is, and we have that framework, what is its goals? What is it it's trying to achieve? What is it going through? So just as a quick, I'll do a brief here, because we've got a lot to go through, but we have details under each of these that we can come back to if we have time left over. If not, it would be in the slide for you to delve deeper or have examples of what we mean by this. So what are the goals of Title I? So it's clearly plain, simple. These are like six things that we consistently across the board understand it as goals of Title I. So improve academic achievement, as we saw, it's supposed to help close any gaps in achievement gaps, right? So we know it's about academics. We want everyone to be successful, and that's one of the reasons that we have this additional funding. It is to increase parent involvement, right? So any way that we can work to find a way to get you parents involved, this is something that we can, put our program in funding too. Support professional development for educators, right? With that example, we have this New York City literacy, New York City Solve, this math and, reading curriculums. And if there needs to be additional support to make sure our teachers and our educators are able to help the students better and the family, this is an area that we can use Title I funding for. And then it's like provides Title I funding is some of the part that administrators don't really talk about as much, but they should. So we have a better understanding at it as education and parent advocates, is it allows you to provide flexibility and local control, right? There's so many things within your budget have to go to specific things that Title I funding it allows you to be like, well, I've always wanted to do this thing, so I can use some of my Title I funding to make sure this happens for my kids, for my students and my families, And it's overall to help with foster safe and supportive learning environments and encouraging continuous improvement and accountability. Because that's one thing about education is like we can learn things, but we have to be able to show that it's improving, that we're growing, that we're evolving. And well, as does this work? Is it effective? Is it not? Okay, then we need to pivot, or yes, we need to double down and do more of that. Anything else you want to add on to that?
I just want to sort of, no, Thank you so much for going through all of those points. And really, the point of all of this is to really fortify the relationship and the partnership between school administration, the educators, your staff members, teachers, and the parent community to work collectively and productively to support the educational success of our students, right? And this policy is basically meant to make sure that everybody's on the same page and their capacity is up to top level when we're trying to approach our student success. Because we know that student success is contingent on all of those partakers to be fully present in this decision making. And you're right, Sharia. I think one of those points that we often mix is the flexibility in the local control part, which really makes that part of it makes it really responsive to our community. What we want in New York City might not be what they want in Buffalo, or it might not be what they want in Rochester. But we could then use this policy and the flexibility in it to make it much more responsive to the community and our students locally, which is a great tool, and gives parents, teachers, and principals to be innovative as to how we could really tackle some of like persistent issues in our kids' academics trajectory.
Well said.
Go ahead, Sheree.
All right. So let's go on to eligibility requirements. So with this Title I funding, there comes on like, how is it calculated? Like how do we get, how do they figure out how much funding and how it should go to? So we want you to make sure that you understand what that means within this system and this process. So it is based on low income, right? A criteria of it is low income. And so it goes to schools with the highest percentages of children from low income families. And that information is collected from the US Census data. And then within your local areas, it can compile. And in New York City, we use the family income inquiry forms, also known as the school lunch forms, were. And so that is why that form is important at the beginning of the school year when you see everybody's like, can you fill out this form? Because it impacts how much money the school gets in terms of Title I, right? Because it's not tracked. I know a lot of people always said, like, I don't want them to know my money and my income and stuff. It's not tracked or assigned to you. It is just allows us to aggregate data to be able to say, this community has this percentage of low income families, so we need to make sure we get further funding there for them. One of the things that around Title I, that the shift that has happened in the last 10 or 15 years has been shifting from targeted assistance programs, which is Title I funding that's only for low income families or families that have been I can't find the word, but are labeled or assigned to be Title I. That's how you would spend the money. So if you are a targeted assistance program, means that the money that comes into your school is only able to be used for those students and for that family. So there has been a change in a move to go to school-wide programs, which allows the funding that comes in to not just be used for that group of the families or students, but to be able to use fully for the school. With the idea behind it is that if I'm focusing and I'm lifting at all the students, we will also uplift those that needed that targeted assistance as well, right? But it also helps in terms of if you can plan and spend money for the whole school, that would impact, it helps, right? So the majority of New York City public schools are now school-wide programs. If you're a new Title I school, there are still schools that are targeted assistance. When you come out as a new Title I, you start off as targeted assistance. It is actually the parents of the school who make the decision to move to school-wide versus targeted assistance. And so there's supposed to be a meeting that happens and they discuss the benefits and the cons of it. And as the school community, they make a vote on whether they want to move to school-wide or targeted assistance. LEAs or local education agencies also must use Title I funds to provide Title I services to eligible children enrolled in private schools. So I wanted to emphasize that in this presentation because there's a lot of, I kind of would say, misinformation that goes on around, funding for charter schools and funding for private schools, and like they're taking money from our kids. And, it's not like that. Whatever the large pot is, whatever the feds send to the state has to divvy up between public schools, charter schools, and private school students. Not the school itself, but the students in there, because they're inside of private schools may be Title I eligible students. And so funding goes to them. So if you want to make sure that as New York City Public Schools and as your school is getting its funding, make sure your families fill out the form, right? The income inquiry form, because that is the form that determines the percentage and the amount of money that would come into our pot. And so the larger pot has to be divvied up between these public school, charter school, and private school students and stuff. So we want to make sure that we get our pot. We make sure our families are putting out the form. And so we're actually calculating for the actual low income families within our school communities and within our district. Go ahead, Tazeen, if you have anything else to add under that.
Just a little bit of a nuanced bit of addition here. It's very important to fill out those forms, like Shuri mentioned. The other thing that we should also encourage our families to do, that if they're in some sort of temporary housing situation, we know that that is also a source of funding through Title I. We know, traditional but then there's something called doubling up that's often gone under recorded. And we have to make sure that those numbers and those families are also being recorded and encouraged to sort of share that eligibility for them. So then we also get to bring additional funds to support those students as well. So it's a lot about, working your community and then encouraging them to participate in this, because all it means at the end of the day is that we could bring more funds to our schools to support those students that need the most. And the other bit that you talked about as far as school-wide and targeted, I mean, we know that no student is learning in a vacuum, right? And oftentimes they're even in targeted assistance time. The reason we have shifted towards school-wide is because we don't want to just pull out a couple of kids and give them some sort of support and then put them back into a space where they feel unadjusted to that newly support. So it always makes sense for us to have a comprehensive support system, and that happens if it's a school-wide program. Where kids are learning in conjunction with everybody else or their peers, and we don't have sort of like identification type of unease that, oh, these are the Title I kids and everybody else isn't. So it does, to that very first piece, Shuri, you mentioned about equity. This is a process, and this is a way that we have shifted to more equity without, pointing fingers to anybody else. Go ahead.
Excellent points. Thank you, Tazeen. So Title I funding, how it works within New York City, the New York City Public Schools system. So the distribution process, how public schools are allocated, is done by borough. Here, there's a citywide percentage, and then each borough gets one. So I'm happy to see then, and this information comes directly from DOE's website in terms of Title I funding. Links of that will also be in the resource document, as well as hyperlinked. And so I put this chart here because previous years, it has been different boroughs hit a different poverty data. And so you had some boroughs who are like 53%, while others could be at 60 or 70%. And so I'm happy to see that for this year, it has the county Title I cutoff is equal across all boroughs to 60%, right? And if you want that increase, it still goes back to how many people are filling out the the family income inquiry form. But based on that, this shows you how the breakdown happens for each borough, and then the schools within it. And so that's how, this is the formula and the process in which New York State distributes the funds to New York City, and then New York City schools down. So how do you find out what your allocation is to your school. So on the right hand, it's on my right hand, so I hope it's on your right hand. But the side that says allocations to schools, the school allocation memorandums, the SAMs. You will hear people talk about these SAMs and where it is. So there's several ways to find how your school is. So I'm showing here now is a breakdown from the Galaxy budget. Galaxy is the budget system in which DOE puts the funding, how your school's funding breaks down. And you can find this literally by going to the DOE website, pulling up your school's name in the find a school, and then clicking in and going into its reports and finding the funding page, right? And this is literally a funding page for a school that I'm familiar with. I just threw the 599 into it, and this is what it pulls up. So this whole allocation for all of its funding. So for our purposes, we're focusing on the Title I, and the SWP means school-wide program, and then what funding is there. So there's full Title I funding, then there's the carryover, which is each year once the actual funding and they've determined that if there's extra money that has come in, it gets added to your pot for next year. So that's this carryover. And then you have a Title I school-wide program carryover for parent and family engagement and just your parent and family engagement lines. And so this school it'll show you that they have Title I, they have over like 375,000 for their Title I, additional more for their carryover. And then this is where you can see the breakdown. And Tazeen, I know you want to talk about the students in temporary housing lines.
Yeah. So this is an important part of what Title I funding comes from or provides, and students in temporary housing is a direct line. You see it over here, and whether a school is a traditional school, K through 5 or K through 12, or if it's a D75 school, this amount goes to your school if there's qualifying students in there. Some questions about whether 75 schools Title I or not. Schools Galaxy allocations over here, we would see that it's the students in temporary housing allocation for Title I is designated under a non-Title I school. I say all this to sort of explain that if your school is a Title I school, you will definitely get the proof of it here on the Galaxy allocations, and you will definitely get the idea of exactly what and how we are receiving this money and for what purposes. Nobody, like your principal or any administration, can tell you, oh, we don't have any family engagement money, when you could really clearly see it here. Are you wondering how much money we have for students in temporary housing? You could clearly see it here. And couple of the interesting parts that those of us who have been here for a long time could tell you is translation services, something that's been hard fought for, and we're really, really glad that it's here. And the other cute thing that I really like is the carryover edition. Not cute, helpful thing is the carryover lines. I remember times when if you didn't use it, you lost it. So I'm really, really happy that this is a practice, especially during the pandemic time, that we're carrying over to current days. So those are the two couple of things that I want you all to pay attention to, and just really want to remind folks, if to find out whether or not you're a Title I school, if there's any ambiguity, open up your Galaxy allocations and you'll find these designations under your school.
Excellent on that. And I do want to say that we showing you the Galaxy directly coming through the going to a school's page on the schools on the DOEs. I'm having such a difficulty doing the public school to DOE. So you know both, but I might just go back to DOE. So since that's what I know. So the DOE's website, this is if you go looking for a school and go in there. We also, those who have been in it for a while know there's InfoHub, which is where they keep all their data and stuff. And that's where you can get the actual SAMs, the school allocation memorandums, as well as download an Excel that shows the SAMs for the whole city, right? So you can look at it. So we've linked all of those in the resource document so you can see it several ways, whichever is more comfortable for you to see and be able to know. So this way you have an understanding of your allocation and your school's allocation. And for those in the district wide, then you can look at your district's allocation.
Yeah.
All right. So
Good
for our
for data lovers.
yeah, I love the Excel doc. All right. You don't want to move. Huh. Hold on 1 second. My thing is stuck.
I think it's looking through all the data, Shri. You did a good job
I
at
know it's
pointing them
like
at it.
it doesn't want to move past it now because it's like, oh, you want to talk data? Thank you. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that, you guys. Okay, so still under title on the funding of it. So we've talked about how it allocates the money, where it comes from, to define it. So what kind of services can be funded by this money, right? Because the money is just not sitting there for any old purpose. It's like, what can we use it for? So this is a quick just example of the type of services that that you can use Title I funding for. You will see that it's close to the same things of what the goals for Title I is for, but these are like big areas that you can use it. So I'm not going to go through all of it. And we also have detailed giving examples behind the types of services that we can come back to if there's time allots for. But I do want to highlight, and then, Tazeen, you can highlight which ones, but I do want to highlight support for special populations, right? Because a lot of times is, we, even with the school-wide program, you think that we're not helping a specific population. But if especially with your comprehensive education plan, if your CEP plan has a goal specifically to help, like just an example, like Black and Latino male students of the school, right, of your school, this is where services could be provided to help that special population, right? If you have a goal or something that needs to help multilingual learners within your school, this is where Title I funding could provide services around that. And then, just highlighting like technology integration. A lot of times, sometimes Title I has been used to do technological things in school. And sometimes people are like, that's not what you could use Title I funds for. This and it's like, it can, if it has an academic basis for it. Like if you are trying to bring more technology, if you want to bring Prometheus boards into your school because you're going to be providing some online learning, right, or kind of thing, then it is something that is helping to support the students within the school. And so that is how, we can go into specifics and details. That's not what this is, but it is where technology integration is something that Title I funding could be used for. Tazeen, anyone you want to point out, or we can move on?
Yeah, just really quickly, I think more relevant to the times and the dynamic that we are in right now, mental health and counseling services is an important way that Title I is used for. If we know about the other funding sources, FSF and other and the state funding sources, there isn't as much flexibility as we like to provide these support services, and Title I is very good on that. And mind you, this is definitely for all our students, but there's a chunk of it that we could also use for our parents. So this is really, really important. And the other one that is very, very popular, I know, amongst a lot of communities, is the academic support programs. I know schools use this as tutoring services or Saturday schools to support kids before state tests, or generally. So those are the ones, if you hear those, if they perk your ear, you know where these fundings are coming from. Or how they're funded.
Yep, excellent points. Thank you, Tazeen, especially around, I was hoping you would pick up the mental health and counseling one. Good telegraph. So we talked about So we've gotten like how, how it's funded, what is funding, what are some ways that we can use it. So where does this discussion happen, right? On the funding and what it's going to be used for. And so this is where a key part of any Title One funding, if you get Title One funding in a school, the principal is required under law to have a principal's annual Title One meeting. And so I know in our protocols, it says, Title One parent meeting, we've intentionally pulled the parent out, right? Because I think a lot of times when they see parent meeting, it's like they feel that, oh, I only have to give you your part of it, not what the whole big pie is. And it's like, no, the federal law doesn't say that. The federal law says that you need to do this meeting to show to your school community how you are going to be using the Title One funding for the year, right? So specifically, this is facilitated. This is a meeting that is facilitated, presented, whichever one of those two words you want, by the principal or the principal's designated admin, right? So it's supposed to be another level because this is the leadership's decision on how they're going to be using Title One funding to support their students and their families. And so we want it to come from there, right? We want them to speak to because they know their numbers, their data, and they know what's going on overall. So we don't want it telegraphed, right? Fun. You want someone else that's an administrator, a leader, sharing this information with you. It highlights during the meeting, should be highlighting the comprehensive education plan, your CEP, what goals there are for the years and what ways you're going to be meeting those goals, as well as the CEP includes the school's Title One educational program. It's stating for Central Leadership and New York State what your educational program is around Title One. It also includes your parent and family engagement policy and your school parent compact, which is all items that should be presented during the meeting, right? And so once you get this bigger picture of this is what the school's goals are, this is the data, this is how we're performing, here's how we're going to use this funding, and then here is this percentage that's for the parents of the PAC, the Parent Advisory Council, to decide how they want to help support this larger program, right? To help parents so they can help support the larger program. This is stuff that should be happening during this meeting. This meeting is always supposed to happen at the beginning of the school year. It's scheduled by DOE Central to happen before the end of October. And so as of this, actually the date of the first date of this workshop is the last day that all schools should have had it by. And as of today, all schools should have uploaded their agenda and everything they had from the meeting, because it's a compliance thing that they have to do. It should be uploaded into iPlan and stuff. So look, we know you guys. I know we could see y'all going crazy, and I did like I haven't had that. We didn't have that. They didn't share these kind of information. They're on it. We're trying to, but work with it. You can tell them like, hey, I went to this presentation. I hear we're supposed to be having this meeting. Can we have this meeting so we know to our school community what they should be doing? And so one of the things I will have to thank parent leader that's here on it that challenged me, because they asked me like, what is supposed to be on the agenda for a principal's Title One parent meeting? Like, what is actually supposed to be presented during it? And I was kind of like, what do you mean? They know, principals know what is supposed to be presented. We don't have to come up with that, right? Like, gosh, that's something that they had to do. And I was told by principals and then other administrators, like, no, they don't. Like, no, they don't have a real set. Those who are good about it and have been doing it for a while, have some that have been doing it and it's wrong, but they still been doing something. And others is like, this is my first meeting, what I'm supposed to talk about. And they go in, they just talk about the parent set aside. So challenged by that, I was like, well, what would we like to see? So we put together a sample agenda that we've linked here, as well as we'll put it in the resource guide that you can see of what we think a principals Title One meeting has. And I ran it by some principals who do really good Title Ones of, and they thought it was on point, even took some stuff like, oh, we like these ideas, so we're going to take some of this stuff. So you guys can definitely take a look at it and know that this is what is supposed to be happening around this principal's annual Title I meeting. It is not just an annoyance. It's not just, kind of thing, oh, they just want to talk about the parents set aside. No, you're supposed to be talking as a whole, how our whole school community is going to be impacted by this Title I program, the services. That's that emphasis, not just on the money, but what it's doing to support us as a school community.
Yeah. Yep. It's a
All right.
pretty important piece, right, Cherie? Just really
Yes.
quickly, it's a really because what is also outlined in the requirements is that the notice for this meeting has to go out at least 10 days prior. The meeting has to be held at a time that most of your school community is able to access it at. There's also, we have that Title I money for translation interpretation services, right? It also should be language accessible to our parents. It should be ADA accessible for our parents. As many parents that this school's principal or their designee could bring into this meeting, the better. Because what we're trying to do is essentially not only just, go through the requirement parts, but then also bring about a school spirit. Because look, there's a bunch of other stuff that they're going to talk about, right? The CEP is essentially what the school will be doing the entire year. The family and parent policy, and the school and parent compact, these are all things that are intricate details that makes the school system work. So, why wouldn't we want as many parents and as many educators or whoever want that are part of the school community to be present there? So it's a really important part. And I fundamentally believe that if this doesn't happen at the right time, and done by the principal, it sort of puts us in a shaky ground. So yeah, like Cherie said, like just challenge your principal, or like ask inquisitively, hey, I hear that this is something that could be done. Can we see this? Can we do this? Something very nicely like that.
Absolutely. Yes, very nicely. Very demure. So we always gonna ask. We're gonna ask nicely. Okay, so now we're up to this thing that y'all hearing about. What's this 1% or 5% or kind of thing? We know people up in the chat. We know Rima here, Rima up in the chat talking about 5% and stuff. So the money for parents. So Title I funding has a specific line for money that's supposed to be set aside. And that's why we call it the set aside. Like you pull out of, so you've got this big pot of money, minimum 1% of it should be set aside for parents to decide how they want to be engaged in activities to help support their kids, right? So you got the school has this 99% of the pot, whatever that amount of 99% to do what they, want to do for the school and stuff. This 1% is for parents to decide how they want to be supported. So the biggest thing I want to emphasize about this is it's not like the 99% can't be used on parents. That's not what we're saying. It can be used with parents. It can be, remember all those things that we said, goals and services that it can be. But this amount is not just specifically for parents, but it's for parents to decide how they want to be supported to help their students academically, right? And so this percentage, the reason that we say it's a minimum of 1% is by the law, is 1% must be held for this, but it can go greater. It can go up to 5% based on what your school and your school community with the PAC and the SLT determine that, we want to do this. We don't have enough in the parent set aside, so we're going to give some funds from our big pot to this to allow for the parent set aside. So it's something that could, if you're in conversation and discussion and collaboration, as you should be with those, you could have more money set aside for your schools, for your PAC to program, to utilize, right? So one of the things that specifically the activities around parent and family engagement that this funding is for, has to be outlined in your parent and family engagement policy. So this goes back to being a part of the SLT, and this goes back to knowing what is being put into the comprehensive education plan and being a part of coming up with the goals and the tactics and the engagement in the CEP, right? These activities are specifically aligned to your students' academic achievement, right? So what we're setting this money for is how we as parents can get support to support our child academically, right? There's other entities, there's other groups, there's other fundings for all this other things, but this is for us to support academic. And it should align, as we've said, with the CEP goals, right? The calculation for this is same way we looked in the Galaxy, is you take the parent and family engagement amount plus if there's any carryover amount. And so whatever that total is how much you have to spend for this school year around this. It's in the Galaxy budget, which is your school's platform for the funding. And I want to emphasize that this is not funding that the PAC can to access, like the PTA can access a bank account or anything. This resides in the Galaxy budget, so you have to go through the school to access this funding, right? And stuff. So it's not something that we're counting money for, this and that. It's calculated, it's put there, and you utilize it by submitting invoices and everything, going through the procurement process that a school has to spend their budget, their Galaxy budget, right? So wanted to emphasize that funded for the schools. Sorry, I lost, not lost this, what do you call this? The Zoom thing is in my slides way. Okay. And yeah, and we already said that the parents and families only to allow them to improve their support of their children academically. So sometimes I know I've been at my PAC meetings and they've wanted to do like social things or sporting things. And I'm like, yeah, that's great, but we can't use our funds for that because we're really supposed to be, one, is supposed to be for us as parents and family, and it's for us to share, to go through academic. I don't know. Tazeen, did you want to add anything or I'll move on to the rest of the set aside? I can move on
Are
because
you?
there's more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you might say something that's here. So the planning for how these funds are spent is done by the PAC with support from the school leadership team, right? So the PAC, the Parent Advisory Council, comes together, they talk, they get feedback from the school community about how they want, and they bring their ideas and what they're thinking to the school leadership team. The school leadership team, in terms of with support, helps them, works through like, yeah, we see this working because this is what we're thinking, for the overall school community. So we can support that, right? We think it's a great idea, or here's how we can, adjust it or evolve it, kind of thing. So it's collaboration, it's working together, right? So I want to emphasize the SLT and the PAC must jointly agree, right? You got to agree on it, kind of thing. You come to consensus. So even, and I've heard this, and we do this at SLT, oh, we voted on, you're not supposed to be voting in the SLT. You're supposed to come to consensus, meaning we have a discussion, we all discuss our points and what we think, and then we all come to an agreement on this is the best route for it. If we can't come to an agreement, then we got to keep talking and working through a discourse through it to get to agreement. And so agreement means it's like, even if it wasn't my idea and I wouldn't want to do it, but I support you guys being okay to do it, right? So that's where the reason I don't get into the vote thing, because it's like, I don't need your approval in that respect, but I need you to agree that we're okay with this is how we choose to use our funds, right? And if not, we keep talking about it, we figure out where we can find that ground. It is so when you're doing the planning for this, you do need to complete the school plan, and I made sure I put it the correct name here. The school plan for expenditure of the Title I Parent and Family Engagement Set Aside Funding Form. Y'all know DOE and they titles and stuff. So I know people have been freaking out over this form, and so it came into play last year, and this thing. So parents, advocates, PAC leaders, this form is not meant to stress you or upset you. It's a compliance thing. It is to assist us with compliance. It's actually made to help us, right? Because we should be having these discussions and be in these meetings talking about how we're planning to spend our money. But sometimes it wasn't happening. And you get to the, near to the budget deadline, and everybody's like, oh, we just spend it, just throw these things in. So no, now it's like, no, this document goes in to be submitted by December, because what it's saying is like, if you've had your annual Title I meeting in October, by October, right? October, November, you should be talking to your school communities, figuring out what you're going to spend this money on and how you're going to spend it and what you're going to do with it. So by December, you should have a plan. You should have something going. It's not set in stone, but you have something going that you could fill out. That's what this form is, to make sure that the discussions and the planning is happening, right? The form is supposed to be completed by the PAC and is signed by the principal representing the SLT and the Title I PAC chairperson representing the PAC, right? And it's supposed to be, I put there the email, a copy to your state and federal, the director of state and federal programs. And this is their main email, and you'll find it. It's on the doc. It's in the iPlan portal as well. It's due December 15th this year, right? And so just work towards that, but just understand that that form can't be submitted without your PAC chairperson's signature. It should not be submitted without it and stuff. So it's become a compliance thing. So you might have pressure from your principals in December around this, but understanding that this is why. It's not meant to be a hardship to us as parent leaders, as PAC, as Title I, or advocates. It's really meant to make sure that what is happening should be happening. Right. And so once you've made a decision about how you're going to spend this money, that's how they call, we've budgeted it, say how we're going to spend it. It's on the principal to make sure that the funds are spent by purchasing deadlines, right? So this is another point I want to say to you. So when sometimes principals, you made a decision, they start giving on you in February and March, it is because they have to make sure that those funds that are spent, and the way it's spent is that you submitted invoices and everything saying, and contracts saying this is how that's going to do. And usually that deadline is end of March, early April. It is in the protocols document when that is. So it is the principal. Principal may designate someone else to like remind you guys or anything, but they have to make sure that it's spent. Right? They don't want to lose the money. So there might be pressure if we haven't done what we're going to do, but we're going to do what we need to do. So there will be no pressure, right, guys? So, Tazeen, anything else to add around the set aside, or anything that I missed, or anything you want to put in?
Yeah, really quickly, two things. So although the principal's report for the community is supposed to happen by the end of October, we also see the other important part are PACs, right? Which we talked about in the previous slide, and this over here. PACs are all, and at least last year in NYCPS, were elected by the end of previous school year, by June last year, right? So there should have been by majority PACs already in function, and a functioning PAC means a chairperson, an alternate, and at least 6 other members at large. So 8 people altogether makes a functioning PAC, but we hope you have a flourishing and a huge participating PAC system in your schools. So by the time we're talking about how to allocate this money, or you're meeting with the SLT, you have somebody already familiar with this process, and being supported by not only your principal, but your FLC in your district's office as well. And the point that Sheree made about the form and how it's supposed to support us, we got questions like, hey, can we go to the casino with Title I PAC money? That form is actually helpful in really understanding whether a proposal that you have makes sense for the direction or the support system that you have in place for your schools, for your students, right? So in that form, you're going to be able to put rationales together, why you're choosing this program, how it's going to help our kids, and what it will cost, right? So in that rationale, if you really can't find a reason why we got to go to casino to help our kids with your ELA scores, then maybe it shouldn't be on it, right? So it will help you sift through a lot of maybe non expandable type of programs that you might propose, because what you're doing as a PAC chair is also talking to your community, right? And you're asking for their proposal as to what they want to see be done with this set aside, right? That's the participatory part of it, which is amazing. And so people will have tons of new ideas, or more ideas that you're gonna have to really compress to make sure that the money you have could support at least some of it. And so how do you decipher? How do you sift through all of that? That's when the form comes in handy. You really get to put on items on that form that makes sense for your CEP goals, for your student, and is able to be carried out within that time of the year by April and March. So if it's something that's going to take you 2 years to implement and get a contract on, it's not going to go on the form, right? So use that form as a way to help you sift through of programs that is actually viable and actually not.
Excellent. Yes. So we're going to keep popping along here. All right. So we know that within this space, there's some of you who are leaders, parent PAC leaders already, existing ones. Some of you're not even PAC, but your PTA or your education council and stuff. So, before we go deep into the PAC and what their role and the DPAC's role, I just want to emphasize for us that as individuals, why you should care and be involved around Title I and why we're presenting this to you, because we need parents to advocate for Title I funding to continue to be spent accurately and stuff. So why do we care about the Title I? And so, it's because, or why parent advocates could be in it. And it's like, it's overall, it's about your involvement, right? In your kid's schooling and his or her education, right? So the importance, we already know there's so many research papers and reports, and there's so much data about parents being involved, right, in schools. And it is. So what does it do? So here's just to quickly remind us all why we do this work, right? Because our involvement enhances your students' academic achievement. I mean, that's point blank, first paramount. Is not even, if you're involved, your kid does better. Our kids do better in schools when we're involved and when we're engaged, right? It overall fosters a positive school climate. Like if you're involved and you're making the school a positive place and you want to be there and everybody feels belong and connected and stuff. So that is what being involved helps to build for yourself and for your school community. And it does, we may not want to believe this and always, or we don't think of it this way, but it does improve our students' behavior and attendance, right? Because especially if you're in leadership, you don't have the principal calling me about you, and your behavior at all, kind of thing. And it's always like, oh no, wake up. No, we got to school. If I'm PAC chair or PTA or education counselor, you can't be not going to school, like, kind of thing. So, no, we getting involved. You going to school, right? Kind of thing. I'm involved. I'm volunteering in your class today. You got to go, kind of thing. So it does. Our kids behave better, and our kids are always in attendance because we're connected and are deeply invested, right? And it does enhance your parent-teacher communications. Like I would speak brilliant, like being a PAC chair, being like those teachers was like, oh, Miss Gibson, let me tell you, they text easy, they call, kind of thing. And I truly have to tell you, moving to the next level, having high school, I miss that part, right? Like I miss that. I'm getting involved just because so I can be like, hey, Miss such and such, how are you? Yeah, can you call me? To build that, right? So they know, oh, I can pick up and call, such and such mom because she's involved and I know I can get her and we've built a rapport, right? Kind of thing. So And then overall being involved is empowering to us as parents, right? That we are partners in our kids' education, that we're part of making the decisions for the things that will help our student and help our school community, help the students, the children around us, right? And we all want a voice in our educational decisions, right? Kind of thing. I think I can tell you for a fact the whole literacy debate where everyone is like, oh, phonics worked and it didn't work, and this and that. There was a disheartening time because those of us who grew up on phonics, right, hooked on phonics and understood, and then it was like, oh, don't emphasize that, or don't get too much on what was the one where they sound out. You sound out words and the spelling could be wrong, but we're not gonna tell them they wrong. Like, wait, what? Huh? That's not, like, so it's like, can we have a say here? Because I don't think this is working, right? And so we know being involved gives us that say, has that voice that you're listened to, and then overall, hey, it's all about the community, right? And it strengthens us and stuff to know that I'm strengthened, that I know Tazeen and I know others who can help me, and we're in community dealing with these same situations, right? Same issues. Parenting is a tough gig, like kind of thing, and you don't want to have to do it by yourself. And so to know that you're in community with others, that when you need the support and you need the help, that you have that there for you. So I just quickly wanted to, make sure that we understand that why it's important for us to be involved, right? And so then when we said like, okay, you want me involved, Tazeen and Miss Cherie want me involved, like, so how do I get involved? Why do I have to advocate for Title I funding and stuff? And so we have an election coming up, right? And you have within that, there's certain beliefs of what the federal government should be in and what they should be funding and what they shouldn't. And so this is in a space of where we want you to know that these are ways that you can help advocate to make sure that Title I funding in New York City public schools, in New York State, in the United States government is being used the right way. Number one, is your awareness, is your right, and the opportunities that you have around it. That this is being understand, like, this is for you. This is meant for you. This is meant as support and to provide assistance for you, right? Educate yourself and others around you about Title I. Share the information that you learn about Title I and what it is. So when somebody goes Title I, you go, oh, I know what you're talking about. I got it. And others go, yep, we know because she told me and he told me, kind of thing. So we need to make sure that we are building capacity amongst ourselves, right? I want you to get involved. We want you to get involved. We're doing this because we want you to get involved at the school level. We want you going to these meetings and talking and sharing these knowledge. We want you joining advisory councils and groups and things around these issues and stuff, because you can go, oh my goodness, you know what? I know we can ask to use that for Title I. You some of these community board meetings and your elected officials have education committees and stuff. You would be able to say like, oh, I need you to vote next time on that bill, because that bill would give more to Title I, because we could get these different things done. If you're in those groups and if you're in those councils, you're able to provide that information, right? I collaborate with your educators and the administrators, right? We want you to build relationships with your teachers and staff. We want you to continuously provide feedback and suggestions to them, right? Like, this is how they understand to know that the funding is utilized in a certain way. The services that they are providing is working or not working, right? They can only do that if you're providing that feedback, if you're collaborating, if you go in knowing, okay, I'm going to build relationships with my the educators and administrators of my school and my district and my city. Effective communication skills, the strategies, right? The fact of the matter is, I recently was watching a live with Shelley Mayer, who's a state senator who sits on the education committee for New York State. And she said, like, when you want to, because in terms of they were advocating for stuff fund childcare to the governor. And she was like, the governor, you can sign those petitions. But she said, in truth, an email, right? If you send a letter and an email to the government, they read that more than they weight that more than the petition, right? So you can still do the petition, but still and I was like, oh, like, I was like, well, she said that out loud, right? Kind of thing. So the letters do take a time to write a letter to school officials, to tell a principal, to tell an AP, to tell your superintendent, or, this is an issue or something was working, or say, don't let it, don't only write for negatives, right? You can write for a praise. You can write for, to say, kudos, or I know that was a hardship, that it may not have worked out, but maybe we can work it out differently. But if we're writing letters to our school officials and helping to engage in constructive dialogues, right? And always, and the emphasis is constructive dialogues, right? Because we want to be in conversation in terms of saying, these are the things that we're seeing. These are the things that we see that we think could be changing. Here's ways that we can make differences, have an impact within our school community or within our district or our larger community at whole. When you need to mobilize your parents, right? What was it? I forgot what the movie was now. See, I always do my movie references and stuff, but activating, the Witches is not Eastwick. Was it the Witches of Eastwick? When they activated the school tree, right? When they were kind of to seem like that's on you, sure. And so don't mind me. The Witches of Eastwick and stuff. And they activated the school tree, which is the tree of list of parents. One parent called this parent, and you always wanted to be, there was a prestige to Zeno, who was the first, right? Who's the first parent got called to start the thing. And yeah, so we all got that. We got that list that we call, and then it reverberates out. You call such and such, you call such and such. Mobilize your parents when you need to. Organize advocacy groups around the issues and the causes that mean something to you. Host workshops around the subjects and the titles that mean something to you, that needs support and help within your community, right? Then leverage community resources. We all have things within our community, from the faith-based organizations to cause-specific ones, whether it's helping immigrants, whether it's helping, around health, maternal health issues and stuff. We have resources within our community. Leverage them, utilize them in your school community. I know for a fact there are a lot of faith-based organizations, churches and stuff, who are looking for ways to help support in education. And they always think that I can't get into the school. So you need to let them know it's not about the school, it's about the families. So help us and we'll get you in. So leverage those sources, the resources, they're there, and then advocate for policy changes, things that you see that are, whether it's the city council, whether it's this New York State Assembly, the Senate, or the New York State legislator. Thank you. That's the word I was trying to think of. The New York State legislator, that we need changes. If there's an existing policy that may be working or not working, maybe we shift it. You need to engage and advocate around those, right? Participate in different organization advocacy days. We know the Alliance for Quality Education, AQE, annually takes parents up to advocate around issues or causes for education in New York City, as well as the UFT goes up, and others, right? There are partner organizations around certain issues. So, I've gone up with housing advocates, I've gone up with tax and income advocates, and, there are different things in terms of, because education impacts a lot of that, right? And so they're always willing and love having parents and people come in from the community to help support the issues and causes and to speak toward that. And then always monitor and hold schools accountable. We can't, there doesn't have to be a rah-rah blame things, but we can say, okay, we spent $100,000 on this thing and maybe it didn't work, or, maybe it's working, and maybe if we spent 200,000, we could have different results, right? But you have to be looking at that and holding the schools accountable for how they spent the funding and what is happening, tracking the spending and program effectiveness. That's a pet peeve of mine, is the effectiveness. And because there's a lot of times that we put things that, we're gonna do this PD and this, but then did the PD work? Did anybody evaluate where they were and what you learned, and then how after? And it's like, it is on for us to do. We can't be afraid of that, right? We can't be afraid of being held. No, accountability does not mean a blame. It's just saying we're taking responsibility for what this should be doing, what we're implementing, and what it should be doing, right? And then progress reports. Like, all the way through. This is working. Are we going along? Are we spending the money this way? Or how are we, are we communicating and engaging with the community in the right way? These are ways that you as an individual parent can advocate and support in terms of Title I funding. Tazeen, anything on there you want to add, list, or that I might have forgotten?
No, I mean, you're pretty comprehensive. And the only reason, I'll just sort of reemphasize the participatory and sort of the democratic nature of this funding source, especially for the Title I parent set aside part, because that we get to really communicate what exactly is responsive to our community. It makes sense for us to periodically assess whether the program that even we proposed as parents, if it's working towards our community or not, or maybe our community has shifted. Like in elementary, there are new, our fifth graders graduate, and then new parents are coming in, and there might be a newer demographic that we have to address that we didn't before. So it's really important to be effectiveness and to be sustainable. If we're holding the same meetings over and over and over again, and we see the participation dwindling, then we will sort of put a damper on the entire program, and we don't want something like that to happen in an important, critical, democratic piece of funding here. And as far as like reaching out to, I just want to give some tangible ways that we actually promoted some changes with Title I that was good. We mentioned, right, the carryovers. This wasn't something that was in practice before, but during the pandemic, when schools that were struggling and parent leaderships were struggling to find ways to really bring in ways to spend that fund, we asked like, hey, can we carry it over? And we didn't even know this until the school finished that fund was going to come to us. So that's a positive change. And then we all always hear from our community, and we heard it today here in the chat that, hey, 1%, even 5% is not enough. Fair enough. So this is how, as parents, we could now show like, look, we did all the programming that we could, but we wish we had this much, or the guidance that you gave us that comes from the federal level, that's adopted by the state level, and that is given to us in the city level. This is the guidance around which you could spend this money. You could say, and which we did, like we need more understanding or vendors around digital education, and or like, some more companies that could give us virtual presentation as opposed to in person. These are little sort of tweaks that we could send up, and they will be able to incorporate going in the future and give us more money, right? State federal fund is just the smallest chunk in our comprehensive educational fund for our city students, right? They're very much less than what New York City and then the state provides. So when we're proactive and we are viable and legitimate parent leadership bodies, we then could collectively push towards increasing that money chunk altogether. Because if that chunk increases, then our Title I fund chunk will increase, and then our set aside will increase. So it's a ripple effect.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you so much on that because you're right around the sustainability part, Tazeen. Like I thought thank you for bringing that up because yeah, that is another part of it is making sure it's sustainable. And I just want to play a point of clarification so there's a difference. Feds and New York State sees the difference between the carryover and rollover. So what we advocated for during the pandemic was a rollover of the funds, meaning that the funds from this year that weren't spent would roll over into next year. The carryover is because Title I funds are reimbursable funds, meaning they estimate what you're going to need and then they give you that amount. And then at the end of the year, when they look at the actual data and the information, sometimes there's an adjustment and they carry that over into the next year. So we always have carryovers. The rollover only happened through, and she's absolutely right, is through direct advocacy of parent leaders that allowed the rollover to even happen. and stuff. So the rollover, that's why you don't see rollover in the thing. You see a carryover, because the carryover is taking money from the year, taking it into the next year. If you don't use your funds, you can lose them. So let's use our funds, right? Like that's, I just wanted, because it's not rolling over and that's not carrying, that's not what the carryover is. So we want to make sure we utilize our funds. So going on to the next point. So now we've talked about all these things. So let's get into the nitty gritty of what a PAC and a DPAC is. So the role of your parent advisory council and your district parent advisory council, PACs and DPACs. So what are they supposed to be doing? So number one, immediately your PAC is supposed to be representative voices, representing the parent voices of your school. It is supposed to have representation from all the different levels within your school. So example, if you are a pre-K through 5 school, you want to try to make sure you want to recruit parents that represent all your grades. You want to recruit parents that culturally representation. You want to recruit parents who have IEPs, multilingual learners. If that's in your school community, you want to make sure that they're represented on your parent advisory council, right? Yeah, as Tazeen says, you can have, these councils can be as large as you want them to be or small, as long as we could get to about 8 or 10. So you always have quorum if you need to make a vote or something. But you want to make sure that as many parents as possible that want to get involved can be involved, right? And you're pulling in. You don't want it, it's not just a Title I PAC chair or alternate chairs, not just those two. You're supposed to have parents that you're talking to, communicating, and doing this work with. It is not just supposed to be on the shoulders of 1 or 2 people, right? They provide input. And if you're talking on the district level, so the district PAC is representative of each school, each Title I school in the district. So your PAC chair or your alternate chair is a representative on the district PAC for your school. Other members, other parents can be involved, but it always wants to make sure that its membership is representative of each of the schools, right? And the same thing, you want to make sure that you have your schools that are representing their community, what their specific issues or not issues or who there is in their community. It is always the voices is advocating for students' needs, right? And what they need academically within this was. It is, the PAC is could be enhancing the communication between the home and the school and the district, right? Some PACs are better at this than others. You don't, I got feedback from someone's like, well, you know, I don't want to take that on, right? And so what it is not like, you're not responsible for the entire communication between the home and the school. It's enhancing, it's adding to it, right? And benefiting. So making sure, so if you have things that get out, make sure that you have another way of putting it out. You either create a board or you do it, you know, it's whatever way in terms of that you are comfortable or your PAC can handle in terms of getting information out. There are PACs who have social media and who are, you know, tech savvy, and so they set up a whole system of being an in-between between the school and home, right? And in this term for the DPAC, it'd be individual schools and districts. You do the best you can within what you have in that point, but it's really more to make sure that information is being shared with the school as well as it's being shared with families, and then taking it back and sharing it with the school, right? You want to make sure that language accessibility is being adhered to within your school community, making sure that all the materials and resources are available in the languages that are prevalent in your school, as well as making sure that translation services are there within your programs as well as the schools. So this way you are helping to break down that communication barrier, right? But the communication part, enhancing that communication, is all about sharing information and resources. That's always the biggest thing that parents always say and families say is like, I didn't know, right? I didn't know, somebody didn't know, even though the principal said, and even though the parent coordinators and PA, PTA, it doesn't hurt that the PAC sends it out too, or puts it out, or mentions it, or talks about it, right? We also, the PAC is also part of the program planning and development of around what the school does. Around in their educational issues. So this is where I always emphasize that the PAC is a council of the school, and the DPAC is a council of the district. So unlike PAs and PTAs who are independent and they are govern themselves, and they also manage and do everything separate, can do things separate from the school. The PAC and the DPAC cannot from the school and the district, because they are a function of that school and of that district, right? So it means that they're involved in the overall planning around Title I and planning for school. They are responsible for coordinating how the parent and family engagement set asides are spent, right? That is the role of the PAC in terms of planning and development, and they all evaluate program effectiveness, like what is working. Are these initiatives of working in our school? If they're not, how do we pivot? If they are, how do we utilize it or expand it? They can help with that, through the mechanisms that we'll discuss in the next point. And then your PAC is good, parent engagement and involvement. They can organize events and workshops. They can work towards creating a welcoming environment in the school. There's so many ways that the PAC can help in terms of engaging and offering opportunities for parents to be greater involved, and especially that welcoming environment. I've seen PACs who their members become like ambassadors when it's open school night or open house, when they're recruiting new perspective, as well as helping like when it's registering, in the spring when we start registering new students and stuff. It's like you can utilize them to help support the thing. And let's face it, when plenty of times we as parents have gone to schools, and when we see other parents, right, and we see parents being utilized, you go, wow, this is a great school community. I feel like a part, and like I belong here, and other things around it. So this is a big thing for me that I've been pushing lately, is making sure to recognize and celebrate contributions, right? I think the biggest thing is when people see themselves, when they feel seen in a community, when they feel celebrated, it's like they are more engaged, and that deepens the relationship. That's my marketing, stuff behind it. It's the things that I do for my clients around this. And so I'm like, hey, we should be doing this in schools. And this is not just recognizing and celebrating, such and such gave money, or this is like recognize and celebrate any contribution that you feel a parent or family has done, right? I give the example that for my PAC, our PTA president was studying for boards, at the times, nursing boards. And so wasn't around and as involved in much, and the rest of the people picked up and stuff. And so I don't know if people understood and knew what she was going through. But when she actually passed her boards at our PAC meeting, we recognized that she just took her boards and she passed it, and then she was so surprised. But then other people were like, wow. And so we celebrated that she did that, and we recognized that she sacrificed, right? Being involved in school, being active in her kids' stuff to do that. And so we just wanted to celebrate and appreciate her. And then I had other parents who were like, oh, well, I was defending my dissertation, and I was doing these things, and I got a promotion at work. And so we started recognizing and celebrating our parents and families for their contributions, of what they were doing in life, but then also how it impacted their kids, right? To see like, wait, mom, you were celebrated for this, or dad, you got called up for this and stuff. So I think it just overall helps to keeping parents, feeling engaged and involved in their schools. And then of course, cultural relevant engagement. So making sure utilize, we've got all these holidays. We've got, now there's a month for this and awareness, and we've got such rich cultures in our school communities that we could be using as learning, teachable moments and learning points to celebrate different things. And I don't know if it's, the history buff in me and the culture. Like, I like learning about other people's cultures and traditions and things like that. So I'm always like engaged, like, oh, what we gonna learn? What they doing? Like, what does that mean? Like, oh, okay, that's cool. I learned something new, kind of thing. But not only is it like I learned something new, these people now feel like they've been seen and recognized in their school community, in their community. Like someone understands something that they find precious and, hold close to their heart, or close to their community. So culturally relevant engagement, use it is a tool. It's something inexpensive that we can all engage in, and then overall active participation, just encouraging people to be active, right? When you see those people who could be leaders, encouraging them to run for leadership positions, whether it's in your PAC or DPAC or your PA, PTA, or your SLT, or in the district, right? And then also going to citywide. It's like there are people that you look and be like, oh yeah, that's a leader right there. Pull them in, right? Pull them in, get them involved, promote the opportunities when you see things out there for them. Like, you know what? I think this would be a good thing for you. You should put there. But then overall, any volunteer opportunity, within what people could do within the school, within the community and stuff, because sometimes it's like you want to get involved, but you don't know how or where to go and stuff. So we could be, but the PAC and the DPAC can be putting out that information. Then the other part of it is building a supportive community network. This is, Tazina is a part of my network. ECC, you guys are all a part of our network, of parent leaders, of people we can reach out to get information, help, or support on, right? And stuff. So you can build that within your school community. And then also within your district is you're building this network of parent leaders who you can be like, you know what, I don't have that issue at my school, but let me reach out to such and such because she can get that or he can get that. I got the WhatsApp group going. Let me put it in the WhatsApp group and let them other parent leaders know, kind of thing. So, and then, with community organizations, ECC is a community organization that we can be involved in. There are others within the community, within our borough, within our city that we can partner with to say that we as a PAC, here's what we do, here's how we can support you, or here's how you can support us, and then always remember to engage with your school leadership and your district leadership, right? We want you a liaison. We want you to be that in between, that go-to for your administrators as well as for your district leadership, right? From your superintendent to the deputies in the superintendent's office, as well as we always say, the PAC can advocate for policy changes when they see there's some things that need. We started as individual parents saying that this rollover, as Tizzy reminded us of the rollover during the pandemic, but it's also getting the PACs signed on to it, just like yeah, this is a policy change that needs to happen, and then going back to, it's always about accountability and transparency, right? Making sure that we are putting the information out to our communities, to our school communities, and to our district community, so no one can say they didn't know about something. But then also promoting that we want to hold people accountable for what is being said and what is being put out there, making sure our funding, that we're using our funds and we're being good stewards of that, and always providing feedback on initiatives that are happening within your school or your district. Your turn, Tazine. I know you got stuff to add there.
I mean, I think, well, actually, you were really, really, really comprehensive over here as far as what the PAC and the DPAC, and I think we could probably move on to the next slide where it really
Go to
talk about
logistics.
Yeah, so that we could really hone in what PAC and the DPAC is doing, or their sort of role and positioning. Shri pulls that up. Well, we know we touched on where PAC exists for a bit at this point. So they're in the school level, right? And they are supposed to be holding a meeting monthly, so that all of this process that's happening with the school admin and your conversation with the SLT, the PAC leadership is bringing it back to your school community at large, all of your parent community at large, so that you get to be informed as and move together as a community, right? So we said it before that PAC includes a chair and an alternate chair, or some people just call it vice chair. I don't know why it's alternate. I think it's like a vestige of old school leadership language, but those two are the mandatory. Often PACs have a secretary so that they could help them, manage all of the sort of the forms that we talked about that helps you to decipher which program for how much money and things like that. And now, so the DPACs are basically what PACs are to your school, DPACs are to the district level. It includes all of the PAC chairs or alternates of that district. So depending on how many schools in that district is a Title I school and has a PAC, they will have a representation on the DPAC. Among those leadership, you'll elect a chair and an alternate who basically does monthly meetings as well to bring together community-wide, district-wide conversation as to, are we meeting the goals for this month? Have we spoken to our principal? Are they holding their that parent meeting? Or are we on track to recruit programmings, things like that, right? So that is the place where best practices are being shared, and each one of or everyone else is also holding each other accountable for where they should be in this process. And we spoke about how PAC sits or communicates with SLT regarding their CEP. DPACs now sit with, on the district level, could communicate with their FLC, Family Leadership Coordinator, to make sure they know what's happening in the district level. In my particular instance, when I was a DPAC chair, I also brought in my superintendent, right? That's the administrator for the whole district, who came in and talked about the DCEP, the district level CEP, so that we were all in alignment as to we collectively moving towards a specific goal and a pathway and a plan to support it. So it's basically as well we have on the district DPAC is basically collect all of our sort of even like access to vendors. Sometimes we go into those meetings and ask like, hey, I need a vendor for literacy, digital literacy. I don't have one. Can somebody suggest all of the different vendors that they have had or worked with, or give new examples of ways to really tackle a specific issue that they don't know how to tackle. This is how we get like a broader access to our community as far as who is our resources on the ground. There might be some type of CBO somewhere or an organization somewhere that we don't know, but that we might need to meet a certain ask for our school communities. And those a PAC that has worked with them now was shared with another PAC. So it's basically a big happy group on a district level that we hope is a happy group at a district level that is able to now talk to each other and share resources and best practices, talk to our district level leadership, including superintendent and their FLC folks, and then also a grants officer who basically ultimately gives the green light for not only your parent set aside, but then as well as your school's whole larger Title I utilization and the whole sort of budget utilization also. So they have much more access to the database of vendors, and we'll talk about the database and what the sort of comprehensive list might look like. And then we could, in connecting with your parents and families, meetings, like we mentioned, both PACs and DPACs have that monthly meeting, which is really important because ultimately in the PAC, at least, when we are talking about the set aside utilization, we want a consensus and ultimately a vote from the community members to say like, okay, we like this group of plans that we're going to propose. Please bring it up to SLT so you could bring a consensus on how to utilize it. At DPAC level, though, we don't have a budget to worry about. At that point, we're just discussing and meeting and having like a sort of a think tank for the district. And then also, connecting with teachers and family-facing staff, it's important to make sure that we have the connection with the teachers that are actually sitting with our students. I know in many times in a few of my schools, we even utilize the support of our teachers to hold some programs some literacy programs for literacy night or math night. They would come down and would do workshops with our parents, and we would use some of that fund to or sort of compensate for their time spent. So it's really important to have that type of dynamic with your staff, who are really teachers who are really the one that are in classrooms, and it's really important for them to now talk with the parents so that you have a sort of consistent understanding of what exactly is happening in the school with your teacher. Shuri, do you want to talk about the iPlan portal?
Sure. Thank you. So for the PACs, the iPlan portal has now become a greater, larger resource tool for us. They have improved this functionality that allows for PACs to be able to upload their documents there. So their compliance documents are being uploaded there, as well as it's become resources, one place that PACs can go to get information, get the forms and templates that they got. So it's also a resource for SLTs, already been an existing resource for SLTs and DLTs, and to be able to see on the public side, but it's now also allows for the PACs to be able to put their things. So number one in there, you can upload your PACs contact information. So whoever your chair and alternate chair and how to get in contact with them is uploaded there, as well as all your documents. So, when you have your PAC election, you have to provide the meeting notice, the agenda, the sign-in sheet, which you show the attendance sheet. That has to all be uploaded into the iPlan portal for your school. So this way you can be in compliance, right? So the only way that you can be as a PAC person being able to do that is to be what they call provisioned. So you are provisioned by your principal, meaning that you're given a login and access to iPlan portal that allows you to edit, meaning you could upload things into the iPlan portal. Everyone that's on the SLT should be provisioned for the iPlan portal. But those who have to actually put compliance things in should definitely be provisioned. So if you're not already, make sure you reach out to your principal to make sure that you can be provisioned to be able to make sure those documents are being put into the iPlan portal when in a timely fashion and when needed. You can also access the resources, everything just from the public side as well. So other council members can be able to go on there, but just only the chair or the alternate chair should be provisioned to be able to upload, to have edit rights. I think you talked about the surveys, right? Did you talk about the surveys or stuff? But I'll just mention, like, part of the connecting with parents and families is, and to find out what you want to focus your program on for Title I, which you do the set aside, is through surveys as well as focus groups with your school community. I love the surveys, but I'm a big thing on the focus groups as well, but that's my marketing background. But it gives you an opportunity to get a couple of parents in, so a handful of parents in, could be like 4 or 5, and sit down and ask them pointed questions about things, and just record their information, meaning handwrite. You can record it on a Zoom if it's virtual, if they approve. But it's being able, excuse me, losing my voice, is being able to take what ideas that you have and run it by and see what people's feedback on it, so you can take it back to the larger conversation that you have with the council and the school leadership team. And we've put plenty of us here who have electronic and paper surveys and stuff, so we can definitely share resources around that. For that, I have an electronic one. I think others have said that they have a paper one that they use. And then remember, as a PAC, you should be connecting with your teachers and any of the family facing staff to just keep your pulse on what's going on, as well as to also for them to know what you as a PAC are doing and how they can support the work that you're doing. So then the planning for the set aside funds, right? So we had mentioned to you before, mentioned earlier before about the form for the spending plan. That is can be found in your iPlan portal. It becomes something to utilize to help you with determining how your council is going to use the funds set aside. You will also, to be able to spend those set aside funds, you have to do a DOE vendor. So remember what we said that the PAC is a member of a council of the school, as well as that we don't have direct access to funding. Funding has to go from the Galaxy budget. And so within that is that we have to use DOE funds, I mean, DOE vendors to be able to provide the services that we want to provide to our school community. And so you make sure that the vendors that you want to use are active, really actively registered with the DOE, because you can lose, they can lose their DOE vendor points. So we want to make sure that you are using DOE vendors. And right at this time, there is no centralized list for DOE vendors, not yet. But you can ask for recommendations from other PAC leaders, your procurement officer in your school, the person who does procurement, which is usually the school secretary, or if there's a business manager, they also have a running list and they can also direct you to vendors that you can use, as well as Tazeen had mentioned about the SGOs. The grant officers within that services your district. They are also a space to get vendors to help with the services that you want to provide. And at the City PAC, the Citywide Title I PAC meeting that meets monthly, they highlight vendors as well sometimes throughout the city, especially when they get a new vendor, or if there's something that we hear the community has said that they've been looking for vendors from, that is someone they can do. The PAC should also be aware and be a part of the procurement process. We have advocated, this is another point of where we talk about advocated for more training on how we have a lot of new PAC leaders, and we have a lot of new people who are in procurement, whether it's the secretary or the business manager. And so there is a process that DOE has about how you should submit your invoices and contracts and those things. And so there is a process that we as PAC chairs should be, PAC chairs and alternate chairs should know and understand. So this way we're not annoying our procurement secretary or our business managers at the end of, end of budget season, trying to get all these things correctly done. So we're definitely advocating for more training on that. There is a process. So we're saying to you, be proactive and connect with your procurement secretary or the business managers to understand how it happens in your school. And please don't wait till March, to do that. Do it earlier in the school year, not near the end of the budget, because that's when they stress and they're not trying to take you step by step. They just want the information so they could get it done. And then, like we said, your district grant officer is also someone that if you want to know if something you want to do is an allowable expenditure, like can you spend it, can you use Title I funds for that, they are the ones who can tell you yay or nay. They can tell you how to submit an invoice or things like that. So they're also another resource to be using for the procurement process. Tazeen, anything further on that?
Just that the last few people are so important in the process for you to connect with, is because so it helps you sort of lay out how exactly or how much how you are going to stretch that set aside money, right? So if we are buying something or getting some vendors, and we would want to understand how much each one of those costs, right? Supplies cost how much. And since we're going through the DOE vendors and the DOE sort of supply place, I forget what this website is that where we buy any type of supplies, but at any rate, so it's a little bit different than how much a chair costs in Walmart as opposed to how much we buy it from the DOE website, right? So it helps you plan exactly how to utilize it, or how much we could actually get out of that Title I money. If it's not viable, this would be the time where you sit down and you talk with your procurement and talk about alternatives, as far as, oh, maybe not this, maybe we'll do this. So it's a very good like learning space, as well as a capacity building space.
And it's Shop DOE is the site that
Yes.
Tazeen was referring to. How we love overpriced shop DOE. Oh, did I say that out loud? Okay, so so on some of the resources and tools that that PACs, Title One PACs and DPAC should be known. So first, people to know. So people you should know and you should be in connection with is your principal, right? If you're a PAC, and whoever the principal designates as the liaison for the PAC. So that could be the parent coordinator, or it could be an AP, or you know what I'm saying, somebody, the SL teacher, or whoever's the liaison. It's your principal and whoever their designated person. For a DPAC, it would be the superintendent is the main person, and then who they've designated, which could be your FLC, the Family Leadership Coordinator, or a deputy superintendent might be the person. It's up to them who they assign and who to work with. You should also know who your SLT chair is and your SLT members, because remember, you're in consultation and collaboration with them around what's going on in the school and what's happening around the parent and family engagement and around meeting your goals for your students. So you should know who they are, who to talk to, and who to be engaging with. Remember, for the procurement part, know who your procurement secretary is, and or the business manager, as they may be called. You should know your DPAC chair and your alternate chair, because they become a resource of support for your individual school. Grant officers. Each grant, there are a handful of grant officers who are assigned to specific districts. So they usually have like 3 to 4 districts that they service. So you should know the name of and the contact information for them, because they become the person you can reach out to about allowable expenditures, or if you need a help with the guidance on the financial, the fiscal side of your Title One programming. And then you need to know your directors for the state, federal program implementation and field support, the DFSP. That's what they go by. But so the whole thing. So they're similar to the grant officers. They are assigned to specific assigned to support specific districts. And they are, when it comes to anything on your ESSA or your Title One, they are the ones that are helping and supporting. They support around SLT, around DLT, around iPlan, all the data and the information. They're the ones to know and to reach out to. So if you want your SLT or your PAC to know some training or that, they are ones that can also provide it as well. Steering committee members, there's several of them on the Zoom for this meeting, as well as I serve as one. Steering committee members of the City PAC, of the citywide Title One PAC. And I serve as well as Naquan McLean and Selena Atterbury as parent representatives on New York State ED's ESSA and Title One COPS, Title One Committee of Practitioner, also known as Title One COPS. Could be each of the steering committee members are assigned a borough, and so they try to support within that borough of it. We will be having opening up to have new steering committee members for the boroughs. So if you're a DPAC, you have to be a DPAC chair alternate to be able to be a steering committee member for the city PAC. But definitely, if you're interested in it, it's another area for your leadership abilities, but also in terms of representative and being able to support to other parent leaders. Andrea Ferguson, Miss Andrea Ferguson is the senior director for Title One Family and Community Engagement. She is the main point person in Central who handles Title One issues and problems, not problems, but Title One programming. And she works for Miss Sharon Renter, who's the senior executive director for all the state federal education policy planning for DOE. And so her team, Andrea, is hosts the City PAC each month, and Sharon is her boss, but also her whole team. The DFSPs and the grant officers report to Ms. Renter. So they're people you should know. So when you go up the line, who you need to go to, who you can go towards for further information. Anything on anybody I forget you think, Tizine, on the people to know before we do organizations?
No, you're good.
All right. So organizations that you should be connected to as a PAC, you should be connected to your PA or your PTA, the Parent Teacher Association. You should be connected to your district Title I PAC, as well as your district's president's council, right? Because if you're in connection with your PA/PTA, you want as a DPAC you to be in connection with your president's council, but as a PAC, you should know to be connected because they are another area to find out information, resources, as well as connecting to the community. The citywide Title I Parent Advisory Council, the City PAC, and education councils, whether it's citywide and community ones, your district ones. You should be connected to them. They are another area for you to share information and knowledge with, but also for you to gather and take from them to bring back to your school community. And it's also another great area for you to find resources and organizations to help support. There might be a need in your school community that they can help you with, right? The New York State Ed Title I Committee of Practitioners, that's one of the group that we sit on as parent representatives, and they pretty much cover anything that New York State Ed wants to do and policy changes around their ESSA and Title I, they bring to that committee to review. So right now we're doing a lot around the accountability program that's going to start back, restart that stopped after. So it's your school designation. So if it's no longer good community, it's local improvement and stuff, the school designations, they talk about that there. There's going to be now a new accountability standard around chronic absenteeism and around the IDA Act. So those are things that this committee is providing input and feedback on. And then, you should be a couple of organizations that have information as well as conferences is the National Association of ESEA State Program Administrators. They host the National ESEA Conference. That is a big conference held annually that brings, administrators, state program administrators, Title I coordinators, different educators, administrators together around these issues. And they're always talking about different Title I issues or engagement issues, and provide really good information and resources, as well as the Institute for Educational Leadership, IEL. They do the National Community Schools and Family Engagement Conference. And this is an excellent conference to go to in terms of, one, they've now brought together the Community Schools Conference and the Family Engagement Conference because there's so much overlap in the work, but it's such a great resources in terms of finding out what community schools are doing, but even what resources and programs that you can implement, even if your school is not a community school. And they literally tackle family engagement, like what we should be doing, what we can be learning, to help build our knowledge and our capacity. So love going to that conference. And there's always great people, and it helps to expand your network. So anything else on organizations, Tazeen? Or
Just really quickly,
go ahead.
Yeah, just really that on it's about your 3 points about being connected with the President's Council and the Community Education Council. Together with the President's Council and the Community Education Council, Title DPAC chairs sit on the DLT. And those are the 3 parent leadership representative on that team that contribute to the DCEP. So it's 100% important for you, for all of those 3 representations to be in communication so that you could collectively elevate things that you're seeing within the district, and really a powerful space to work in, when you could collectively advocate for sort of highlights that you want the superintendent and the district office to pay attention to. So we would think like, oh my God, that's a huge district. There's so many schools. What's the point of, connecting with one person? But really together, our ultimate goal is for these leaders to have a feel of the ground as to what is actually going on. And there would be the representation on that space and the DLTs to really promote exactly what not only parents want, but then what they want for their students.
Great. All right. And so here's our resource page. These are important links to a lot of the stuff we shared in here, and then other things that you should just have as a resource. So this will be in your slide presentation. They're all hyperlinked, but it'll also be in the resource doc that goes along with this presentation. And I think, you know, you guys, as you do this work, will come across more information, but so please share it with us, because then we will continue to update this and making sure that we share further. Um, Not everything could fit on one page. So I just wanted to also the iPlan portal and emphasize, you know, for the iPlan portal, the new protocols document, the protocols document is updated and is the Title I protocols document. So whereas you have the chancellor's regs, the chancellor A660 for PAPTAs, the A655 for school leadership and district leadership teams, we have the protocols document that's updated each year, mainly updated to give, because there's a chart in there with a timeline with dates. So it's updated to each year to give new dates. But we also update the protocols based on if something has come up, like the fact that we say, you know, update this year, the principal's Title I meeting should only be administered by an administrator, right? That's been an update coming from the advocacy of the community. So that document is there for this school year. Is there, the draft is there, so you can find it in the iPlan portal, as well as for those who haven't. You have a pack and a DPAC, and you have not done your bylaws. The bylaws template also resides there that you can use. So please do and make sure that you get your bylaws created and voted on. So this way you have a structure for how your PAC and DPAC should be running. So that's it for us. You know, we had our Q&A and kind of thing, and so we'll continue that. But outside of that, if you need to reach out to Zine or myself, here is our contact information, and it'll also be in a copy of the slides. So definitely reach out. If wherever we can help, we will. If we don't have an answer, we will put you to the people who could give you an answer. Or if it's something we need to create a new answer for, then we will create a new answer for it in partnership with you. So I want to, Tazeen, do you have anything else to add on the contact side?
No, that's my best
Okay.
contact over there. And we tried and we hope that it was comprehensive, this presentation, but by no means exhaustive. So give us grace if we have missed something, but this is something we would love to hear back from you. I know ECC will send out surveys or feedback, questionnaires or such. Give us feedback if you want to see us again, and if you want even more details on specific things, let ECC know, and they will know, or even us, and we'll put something else together for you on a need to know basis. So yeah, we would love to hear from you for sure.
So thank you all. Thank you for making time. Thank you for staying here, staying overtime to this. But the conversation has been robust, and we appreciate you for that. We've enjoyed this engagement. And yes, ECC does ask that if you can support them, because it is volunteers. This is all volunteers doing this, but also using the QR code and the link to provide them any further feedback would appreciate it. So I am grateful to my partner here, Tazeen Azad, for doing this Title I presentation with me. As she has said, we just scratched the surface. This was just like a primer, a 101 for you guys, but we've already seen in the chat and what's been said to us that we have to do a part two. And kind of thing. So I hope that she will love to want to be in partnership with me again to present to this. But I thank you so much for working on this with me and presenting with me. And I thank you all for making time for coming out. And I'll leave it to Tazeen to close out.
It's been a pleasure. So to you all, have a blessed and a wonderful year with your Title I PACs. And we hope you in community with your leadership spaces, but with all of us parents, that we just want to do the best that we can amongst our students and for our students. And with that, everyone have a good night.